From DDR1 to DDR4, the main difference in memories was just the speed and voltage. So each new DDR from 1 to 4 had lower voltage, so it can be more efficient, and higher speed, higher bandwidth. In earlier days, the voltage was printed on the memory stick, and that's how you would tell whether it's DDR1, DDR2, and so on. But with DDR5, there are significant changes that were made to the design. And it's very important to be aware of those, especially when you're trying to diagnose the motherboard that doesn't post. Until DDR4, essentially, if the board is flashing, the memory is bad, then obviously you check whether you have memory voltage. So in case of DDR4, that's like 1.2 volts perhaps. And then you just switch from one memory to another memory and see if that fixed the problem, right? So if the voltage is there, perhaps you use the socket tester and you confirm that you have a good socket, the connection to the CPU is working, you replace the stick and it works, right? That was the problem. Or you replace the stick, it still doesn't work, and you check the memory voltage and the memory voltage is 0. You had some problems with the power delivery system to the memory stick, right? So obviously it's not going to work. But with DDR5, recently I learned it's a lot more complex. So let's take a look. So this is DDR4 memory, and typically you have two types of RAM. You have ECC and non-ECC. For everyday use, for gaming PCs and stuff like that, we use non-ECC. The ECC memory, on the other hand, is typically used on the server motherboards. It's in a way, it's a little bit slower, but it's more reliable. I never really dug too deep into that, but one way you can recognize whether it's ECC or non-ECC is whether you have an odd or even number of chips. And you can see in the center over here, we have additional chip, making the number of chips on the board odd, which means this is ECC memory. Also, you will note that we have SPD chip over there, which is essentially around half a kilobyte EEPROM, maybe 1 kilobyte. And on DDR4, all it does, it just holds the basic information about the memory. It's manufacturer, date when it was manufactured, the size of it. It's essentially kind of a ID chip that tells the motherboard what kind of memory it is. Also, what kind of frequency it supports. So this one will require 1.2 volts to work. We also have, so this is relatively high speed memory because we have filters on the data lines, right? The slower memory will not have these. This is PC42666. So not super fast, but it's relatively fast. If, on the other hand, we take a look at DDR5, we see that we also have the SPD chip. But in addition, we have this chip, MPSL, and we have 3 coils. We also have plenty of caps, big caps. And here is the difference. The SPD on this memory is actually the interface that the motherboard uses to communicate with the memory. The memory, in that sense, is active, it's not passive. So the voltage on the DDR coil or the memory coil will go to safe level, maybe the lowest level, around 1.1 volts. Then the BIOS loads and it starts talking to this chip. So it's not just an EEPROM, it serves as a communication bridge between the motherboard and this chip. And this chip will produce voltages using these coils, will produce voltages for the memory chips. That's why hardware info gives you a lot more information on DDR5 because it can retrieve it from over here. So we can read the temperature of each chip. We can also configure it. We can configure the speed, we can overclock it, we can overvoltage it. And all of that is done by this chip, but we don't communicate with this chip directly. Now the motherboard talks to this chip using standard I2C communication. So it has nothing to do with the actual communication that we perform with the actual chips, right? That communication is on a very high frequency. It's not easy to build a device that would use the memory stick like this, because at those speeds we're essentially crossing from electronics into physics. So a lot of factors that we normally ignore in electronics, like impedance of the traces, in this case, at these speeds, becomes very important. But with this chip, we just use I2C. Now it's going to be much larger than on DDR4 because it needs to handle communication with our PMIC over here. That's why on DDR5 we don't call this chip just SPD chip, just like we do on the DDR4, and as you can see it's just one tiny EEPROM and not much else, right? But on this one we call it SPD hub because it handles communication. That's our interface. That's what the motherboard talks to. For that reason, when you're diagnosing the motherboard and you suspect memory issues, you have a lot more things to check. And one thing that is not true for DDR4 but is true for DDR5 is the BIOS issue. Normally, when I see that the memory is not working and I confirm that the voltage is there, I don't blame the BIOS. And on DDR4, normally that's how it works. But on DDR5, the BIOS is actually responsible for establishing communication with the memory, powering it on, and allowing the motherboard to boot, to post. And just so happens that we have a motherboard that is not seeing the memory while the voltage is low. Most likely that coil that I checked on yesterday's video is probably the coil for the CPU memory. That's why it's 1.1, not for the DDR. But I don't know that. I don't have the schematic. I gotta check our database if we have a board view or schematic for this board. But thanks to you guys and your suggestions, now I know that it absolutely can be a BIOS issue on DDR5 memory motherboards, not on DDR4. That's why my conclusion was that it's probably not a BIOS issue. But we're going to answer that question today. So let's get the motherboard. Let's get Lead Farmer to work, send him the BIOS, and see what he can find out. Okay, now it's starting to make a lot more sense what's going on over here with this board and why this board is here. It came in for a socket replacement, but we concluded that the socket is fine, the memory is fine, everything's fine, but the memory is not being detected. The customer is 99% sure that this is the BIOS issue, and I lean towards that as well. The customer acquired the board as faulty, did the BIOS on it, so wrote the new BIOS or whatever, and it didn't fix it. But did you actually write the BIOS? Did you actually update the BIOS? So what I do, I remove the chip, right, and I put it in the programmer, and that's how I do it. So I read the BIOS, I sent the BIOS to LED Farmer, and I try to erase the chip, but it will not. It is erase protected, and looks like even write protected. So essentially the chip is locked. So typically in those situations, what do you do? Either AS programmer or Neo programmer, essentially it work the same. Typically you just hit the unseal or unlock, but we can see that old SREG is 0x46 and the new is 46, so it didn't work, right? It didn't actually write the registers. So sometimes you can, if you select this is Giga device, right? You read registers, then just clear all of them, right? And write, then read, and they all come back, right? So that doesn't work either. Now there is a way. So if we disconnect, so let's how do you reset this? So instead of doing auto detect, because normally we just read ID from the chip, right? And this is what we select, 25LQ256, right? This is 1.8. These are the registers that were read, and based on those registers, we conclude that this is the chip. It is the chip 25LQ, I think. Let me read the chip again. So this is our chip, right? 25LB256FYIG. Let's put it back in, and let's manually select the chip, but this time let's fool it a little. Let's see if that works. And we want WinBond chip. So any 256, this is 128. Any 256, that is 1.8. Okay, for some reason I can't find it in AS Programmer. I'm not sure why. But in a Neo Programmer, we got two chips, WinBond 256, 1.8 volt. So that's what we want. And so we have Giga device chip, but we're treating it as WinBond chip. So let's try unlocking this one. And we are still reading 44, which is also weird because AS Programmer reads it as a 46, Neo reads it as 44. But unprotected still didn't work. Let's edit. Let's read the flags, and it only, well, actually, yeah, we can remove protection from these, right? So this is what we're reading, 44, which is different than what AS Programmer is telling us. So let's clear all of these, right? Read, and it's still the same. So that's what I think is going on over here. This is a BIOS issue, but the BIOS was never actually updated. So, well, I have two options. Option number one, we can just replace the chip. You know, screw this chip, let's just buy a replacement chip and program the replacement chip. Not sure if that's going to work. I've never tried that before. Because maybe if the chip is unprotected, the status registers are different, maybe the motherboard will refuse to post to actually read the BIOS. I don't know. Option number two, we can dig a little deeper how this protection is actually made. Do we need some kind of key to unlock it? I've never dug into this particular feature of those storage devices, but that's what I imagine is going on. If this is not an encryption issue, so it's not like we need the key, we just need to figure out the right string of bytes to send to the chip to unlock it, essentially. That is very possible, but I have no idea. I've never actually had this problem before. And you know, we do a lot of BIOS repairs, and usually you just put it on the programmer, you read it, erase it, write the new BIOS, and that's it. But on this one, we have a challenge. So let's call this video a difference between the DDR4 and 5 and I guess a stubborn BIOS chip. Unless you guys have some solution to this, then definitely drop it in the comments. But that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate you, and I shall see you guys in the next one.